Hey there, TNA fam. How's it going? We're back again today to talk more shenanigans, as always. So today I would like to talk about the main event Mafia. And no, I am not talking about the actual faction that was in TNA. Actually, I suppose I shouldn't call this the main event Mafia, but basically that is what we are talking about. Basically. Now, I guess it isn't so much a mafia or whatever or whatnot in any way realistically or whatever, but obviously we all know what I'm talking about there. I am meaning the more politicking individuals who basically sit at the top of the card and keep their spots at that top of the card and basically do not allow the younger, newer talent to come in and change things around. Um, Things like that. So yeah, that is what we're talking about today. Now I'm not going to say that these any of these people actually go about politicking or go about these things. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not going to say that they do for just the sake of saying, well, I don't know what they do, so I can't accuse them of anything. Um, and so I'm not trying to accuse anyone of anything. I'm just saying that basically, hey, you've been in this position and you're still in that position and it feels like no one else has moved into that position. So it really feels like you're monopolizing that part of the scene in the company, and it feels like, hey, there is, well, I don't want to say there is no movement upward for younger stars, but at least in that regard, there is no movement upward in that regard for stars. And perhaps some people have caught on to this in a lot of the discussions that I've had over the last couple of years or whatever as well. But the Hardys are like the biggest offenders of this. Like they are literally the biggest offenders of this. And I know like everyone loves the Hardys, and look, I really like the Hardys as characters, and I don't want to just say bad things about them. The thing here is what I'm saying is that not I can say again, look, the Hardys are an important team. They can be an important part of the division. And we shouldn't just be like, well, let's get rid of them, they're assholes or whatever, la da da da. No. All I'm saying is basically, right? Even if you're going to say the Hardys are the best thing going and we can't possibly make anyone better than them, okay, cool, great. But at least let's try to make some people so that they can actually have some people to face and some storylines. Not that they haven't had some people to face here and there and some storylines, but not nearly enough. And I'm not saying that this is part of the Hardys. I'm just saying in the storylines that have been presented on TV for the last like 2 years or whatever it's been since the Hardys have been there, they've been basically in the same position that they've been in for the last like couple of years. They haven't gone up, they haven't gone down, they haven't gone and done really anything. But then again, they can't really go anywhere. But again, for the most part, they haven't really committed. And this is the company and the bookers and the creative more so. Again, they have created this space where no one else has gotten into that division, but perhaps besides a couple of teams. And now it's like, oh, well, they're moving on and doing something else or whatever, or they're rehashing something else that they did do or whatever. But yeah, like, again, you have very little in that division. So again, and a very little a lot of the stuff that you have in that division has very little build up. So I'm saying the Hardys need quality opponents if they're going to be the champions. If you're going to have them as the champions, they need stories to work with. They need challengers. They need opponents. They need motivations and reasons and wants and needs and ups and downs and that sort of thing. You saw that with the Righteous storyline. I think it was a little like there was times and places and the way that it was kind of told, I felt like perhaps was like it was, they were trying to draw this fine line, I think, with the Righteous storyline, where it was like they were trying to be like the Righteous are these really nice guys in some ways, and they're almost exactly kind of like the Hardys, kind of, and they've idolized the Hardys and all of this other stuff and whatnot throughout their wrestling career and whatnot, but they want, I don't know, and it still doesn't really make sense to me what they really wanted, because they never really got what they wanted out of facing the Hardys, seemingly. At least to me. Like, I don't know. Maybe their goal was enlightenment. I don't know. I don't know. Or just, I don't know. Like, really? Like, their goals seem to be like, let's face every version of the Hardys possible, basically. Seemed like that was the goal, kind of thing. We want to face them. Like, why? What for? How does that unlock an achievement for you? Like, what does that do for you? How does that make you bigger, make you better, make you the next thing that's going to take over and everyone's going to be talking about and paying to see? You know what I mean? Like the story, like some of the story itself and some of the things that they did for it were great. But again, like, but of course, again, some of it was like poor planning and whatever else and all of this other stuff. Or perhaps like that lack of like clear vision of like how we're going to present this. And like, it is a creative process as well. And a lot of back and forth as well of like, no, they should be like this. No, they should be like that or whatever. I don't know. Like I think there was a lot of that where it was like, we don't know what we're doing with these guys, and they're just kind of here, and they're just kind of having this story with the Hardys, and we're just going to see where it goes. And that can be good, but like without clear cut vision, it's just like, oh, okay. All right, whatever. But yeah, no, like again, so that's like, I don't want to just keep harping on the Hardys, this part of it and that story or whatever. But like, you can see it the same thing with the Nemesis. Like, again, they've gone back to something that they did last year because they're like, oh shit, all the other teams that we have, none of them really have a story with the Hardys, and we haven't built any of them up enough to face the Hardys or to do anything for the tag team titles. So let's pull this team out from nowhere, the rest of them like last year. At least there is something there to some extent or whatever. But again, it's like, in the meantime, we're not going to start a story, or we're not going to do anything for anybody else, or start moving or finding other teams to start challenging the Hardys. Because again, like in that tag team scene, besides the System, there are no really big heel teams. None. There's like maybe one-ish other babyface team, and that's it, basically. And Order 4 really isn't a team anymore, especially right now. But, like, the tag team part was Hotch and Skylar for the most part. I mean, I guess it could be Ali and Agent Zero, but I don't think that makes very much sense, honestly. Um, but then again, it doesn't make the least amount of sense. But still, you can see what I mean. Like Ali has won the X Division title and won the international title. It's much clearer that he is a single star, and they see him as a single star that sort of is a faction leader or whatever and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they don't see him. I mean, they do see him being able to wrestle in tag team roles, but they don't see him as a tag team performer, I guess. And that's probably because he's really talented, I guess. But still, they don't see him as like, hey, who could we pair you with? And, you know, actually, kind of the best person for him to team with would be Hotch, actually, in some way, which is kind of crazy, actually, to be honest. Or maybe Cedric Alexander, honestly, maybe, or some other people that he has a long history with. But then again, his character is very, or at least currently, his character is very like individualistic and is very like self-satisfying and self-gratifying and whatnot. So I don't see him really being a tag team guy because he's all about himself, basically, realistically. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like that's the problem. They haven't done anything, and perhaps this was a previous administration problem or whatever, a previous booking problem, and now they're left to pick up the pieces and go, okay, now, all right, or maybe it still is an issue, and that's the thing, or maybe there's just too many floating balls that they're trying to juggle, and they're just being like, well, yeah, maybe the tag team scene is gonna feel a little limp right now, or whatever, and the Hardys. But people are going to like the Hardys and are going to tune in to see the Hardys, so we hope that carries. But they did this again last year, too, when they had a long period there where the Hardys were champions for a very long time, and it just felt like, well, so what? You have no stories for nobody else, and no reason for them to challenge the Hardys, realistically, and no build-up for any one of them beyond, like, a couple of weeks, or a month, maybe, at the most. Especially when they were doing the monthly pay-per-views there at a time. But I think that at least, like, was like understandable because they did have pay-per-views every month, so you were more like understanding of saying, oh well, they don't have very long for these like other shows to get things together and get them ready, so you have to kind of expect a little bit less, or really a lot less for them. But they've carried over that same booking philosophy. And it doesn't matter if you have a pay-per-view in 2 months or 3 months or whatever else it is. If you still have the same booking philosophy of let's turn up to the next taping and then figure it out for the next till the next taping or whatever, that's your problem right there. Like, and the main event, I don't want to just keep saying the main event mafia, but the main event stagnation of stars is a big issue. We've seen this recently, though, where they have been pushing a lot of the younger guys out there to face and to wrestle with some of the more established guys. We've seen like matches with guys like Eddie Edwards and Casey Navarro and guys like that. It's like these are guys like that. If you were going to have a match like that, like even like a few months ago, that could have been like a pay-per-view match, and it's still, I guess it could be. But now it's just a TV match, so Casey and Ricky Sosa, same sort of thing, can prove themselves. I don't consider Brian Myers a real big main eventer or anything. Of course not. But he's an established act. He's an established star. And it is good to have established stars. But you need to be this is the cyclical nature of wrestling. When you establish a star, and this is why people who analyze, like, why are people booing Cody Rhodes, or why are people sick of this or sick of that or whatever, or why is this person's popularity going down or whatever else it is. It's because they do the same thing every single freaking time, basically. They just do like, especially in WWE, they do the same thing every few months or whatever it is. Every time Rhea gets hurt, well, she's away until she gets back, and then whoever is holding the belt is interim champion, effectively, until Rhea comes back, and then wins the belt again, and then gets injured again, and or whatever else it is. And then goes away again, and then we have an interim champion until Rhea comes back. Same sort of rinse and repeat thing. So, and it's not Rhea's fault. She's, like, again, she's just doing her job and just trying to be the best, and, you know, whatever. And it's like, is she going to say, no, brother? No, brother, don't put the belt back on me. You know, she going to sit there and, you know, I mean, maybe she does politic for other people. I don't know. But is she going to go out of her way to be like, nah, I'm just going to not kick out, or I'm just something, or whatever. You know, I'm just going to botch the finish or something. Or I'm just going to lose. Why not? Let's do something else. Like, that's the thing. When you have a star like The Undertaker, like any person that you have, especially long-term, Eddie Edwards, Moose, Rosemary, these people, you need to say, okay, right, well, how do they change? How do they evolve over the years? How do we shift them into a new space? Because, yeah, they've been here for so long, at a certain point, it's like, does start to feel like, well, we've done everything that you could possibly think of to do with them. And now it's like, oh, okay, well, all right, you know, what is it that character or that person or you need for the audience or whatever. And again, like Eddie, I think, like, again, especially right now, people, like, if he was, like, getting towards the end of his career, people would be much more willing to look at him as a guy, like, as a babyface, right? He's, like, winding down his career. You know, now you're starting to just look at it as a Hall of Fame level career. You know, we're not going to really do anything big and bad and scary with him. He, you know, and maybe he's not even going to win anything majorly, but we've got a major story for him to wind down. But now it's a babyface run, you know, and he's all, like, I don't know whether you could do anything with it, but you did the whole thing with Gail Kim when she was, like, retiring. Because, yes, when you go to a pay-per-view or whatever, you expect to see a big-time match, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Fans want to see these big-time matches with these big-time superstars, but you don't get a big-time superstar realistically overnight. And they definitely don't really, like, have that new superstar yet. in amongst their ranks, realistically. Like, they could try to make Leon into that position, potentially, but we'll have to wait and see what goes on there. Because, like, again, we don't know if he's sticking around or leaving or whatever or anything like that. And that, of course, that's always I guess, the drama point or the tipping point in some ways with TNA. And it would be great if we could find some, I don't know, gullible billionaire or trillionaire or whatever, to just loan us lots and lots of money just to make the product, like, really, really good. And it's not to say, oh, bring in all these ex-WWE guys or whatever. That's not the answer, you know. The answer, well, I don't want to say the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, but the answer is, you know, saying, how do we find talent that are worthwhile investing into? And then let's actually invest time in those talent. Like I said in a recent video, why it takes a special individual to sort of define an era. Eras are getting shorter and shorter and have been getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter over the last, like, few years. Like, realistically, again, you talk about, like, the current era in WWE is still Roman and Seth. And, like, Cody is now in that mix, realistically. But now you're starting to move along. You're starting to get more new guys like Gunther, and guys like that, and Braun Breaker, and some of those other guys are sort of looking like they're in the mix or whatever else it is. So that new era is starting to kind of appear on the horizon, kind of, but they're not really there yet. You know, like, certainly, like, some people are more there. And again, you're trying to do some other things with this reign for Gunther, so to build him back up or to give him something else to do while he's not the champion. So, but realistically, like, I think it'd be better if he was the champion and doing all this stuff and killing off all the legends of yore, like, as the champion. And then he's like the new measuring stick of, you know, new wrestlers coming through, and the guy that helps, you know, the transition away from the older stars, getting rid of the Goldbergs, getting rid of the Brock Lesnars, getting rid of the John Cenas, the ruthless aggression stars, certainly, absolutely, and the, you know, even before that, which is crazy. But yeah, again, the PG era wrestlers and the you know, that sort of digital era, like, or whatever you want to call it, wrestlers that have come along in the last few years, the you know, and that sort of thing. So yeah, especially since, like, 2015 or whatever, you know, the Roman Reignses and the Seth Rollinses and whatnot, those sorts of guys. The Shield era, you know, like, whatever. The CM Punks and whatnot, that sort of the era of Dean Ambrose and guys like that. That era is over, realistically. You've still got those guys in WWE, but realistically, you've got to be looking at not just, like, Gunther and whoever or whatever. You've got to be saying, okay, well, what's the future like? You've got to be looking at guys like Javon Evans. He's probably nowhere near ready. You've got to be looking at guys, well, I don't want to say Penta, but Penta should probably be more, like, closer to, like, the main event now than in 10 years or 5 years. Because in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, you already want to be moving away from guys like Penta and going into guys like Javon Evans and guys like that, and guys like Obafemi will be household names by that time, at least in theory. So that's the kind of thing that you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at, okay, in 5 years, Obafemi and guys like that, Trick Williams and those other guys will try to make them on the same level, kind of, at least to some extent, as some of the other more major superstars that have been around, like the Brock Lesnar's of their time, but not everyone can get to that point, and everyone needs a role to fill, and sometimes that's, you suddenly get that Mark Henry moment or whatever, where he'd been around for a long time, but I can't remember how many years it was that he'd been working. It was a good, 5 to 10 years or something. At that point when he finally, really cracked and really got over, suddenly, the whole of Pain and that era and whatnot, and did all that stuff. But that really sort of didn't last that long, in many ways, but it was everyone remembers it because it was finally him getting that thing over and it finally being a thing, and then finally pulling the trigger and saying, all right, we'll give you a good year or a good whatever, 6 months or whatever, and we'll see it play out, and then we'll find something and we'll figure out what we're going to do after that. And then he got injured, I think it was, and then they had to take the title off of him, and when he came back, I can't remember when he came back. I think it was a long time after, though, wasn't it? I don't remember. Anyway, they didn't really push him back into the same position because everything had kind of moved forward without him. You'd kind of already moved past the era where he was gonna kind of be relevant, because now you were getting into the Daniel Bryans and the CM Punks and things like that. So yeah, there's obviously that whole thing there with things that happened, like those sorts of things. But I think it's easier always to look at WWE in many ways because they've got very clear, for at least a few years, the guys that are on top the most, the 4 or 5 guys or whatever it is that are on top for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, or the last 10 years or whatever it is. Guys who've held the world title, guys who've been in that main event picture, or whatever, that sort of thing. It's very easy to point to. I mean, you can do it in TNA, but then it's Jeff Jarrett, bit of Sting, Kurt Angle, and then it's kind of a lot of transitional periods. So there's no real one person that really held the fort down for more than a few years here or there. Obviously AJ was a big face of TNA and things like that, but he really wasn't champion or really wasn't in that main event picture for very long, for very consistent. And I don't agree with that, but that's what they did do, in the current era, obviously it's a lot simpler, I guess, to some extent, because you can talk about the guys that are typically in those spots. And I want to say this again of saying it's not bad to have guys like Frankie Kazarian and Moose fight each other or wrestle each other. Because again, fans expect to see big time superstar versus big time superstar. Everyone and their dog who's a TNA fan or even partly a wrestling fan knows who Frankie Kazarian is, realistically. They know who he is. They know how big of a star he is, and even so, he has that star power. He doesn't need anything. Because, like, he didn't even really need that world title win that badly. I think he needed it perhaps himself, but, like, realistically, he was a made man before that, and really, it didn't really enhance his career all that much, realistically. But still, he's still sort of, you know, a big star or whatever. Moose, obviously, same sort of thing. You talk to anybody about Moose and they know who this guy basically is, you know, right? This big guy, super athletic, you know, right, you know. So, yeah, he's just like one of those guys that can go out there. Both of these guys can go out there and just be these big time characters with these big time legacies and have a big time match. You know, so it's not like hard to do the math that people would be into seeing that. But, you know, Moose wouldn't be who Moose is if he didn't actually achieve anything, or if he wasn't around for long enough for people to start feeling like, yeah, this guy's part of the furniture. You know, he keeps paying his dues. He keeps putting in the work. He keeps staying here when, like, this person leaves and that person leaves and that person goes and this person goes. No, Moose is still here. No matter what, Moose is just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to be here. I'm just going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do this. Even if the creative's questionable sometimes, even if yada yada, whatever, there's people telling us, you know, we're going to go out of business tomorrow and or whatever if we don't make so and so or whatever and all of this sort of stuff. Well, we better make this a good show then, you know. So I think that's his mindset, which is a really good mindset to have, of saying, well, better roll up my sleeves and get to freaking work and making this match the best thing that I can do, or this feud the best thing that I can do to draw in the fans and you know, keep this going or whatever. And I'll, you know, it's like the captain going down with the ship type philosophy or whatever, that sort of thing. Yeah, he's a fighting king. Like, that's the kind of eulogy there, where he's like, he's the commander on the front lines sort of thing. You know, he's not like, whatever, I'll just go and take a big paycheck from WWE or a big paycheck from AEW or whatever, and I don't really care, and whatever. If they're paying me, like, that's all I care about, because, you know, whatever. It's all that about that money, money, money. And obviously, like, with some guys who claim that, like AJ Francis or whatever, who's always claiming he's first class or whatever. I know that's his gimmick, whatever. But still, like, he was in WWE. And he was, like, doing big things there in WWE. Well, not on screen, but behind the scenes. So, but yeah. Anyway, you can't have, well, look, you can have Moose and these other guys be there, obviously, but you can't have those guys just occupy the same spot. You've got to find and build new stars to fill their spots, even if they're going to leave. And that's perhaps been the problem of when TNA has built some of these stars and whatnot, they have left, and then it's been like, well, now we've got to build the next lot of stars again, and they're probably going to leave. And then we've got to go back to the drawing board again. And so Moose and Eddie and guys like that who are just sticking it out like a sore thumb or whatever, stick out way more, even more so, because it's like, well, these guys aren't going anywhere. And these younger guys are just thinking, well, I can get a big opportunity in AEW, despite like the evidence to contrary, like that idea. Or WWE, despite, again, the evidence to contrary that. Though I think WWE is a bit better at it in some regards, but also they are in some ways worse. I don't know. Perhaps they're just as bad, I think, honestly. But I think TNA gets such little meat off of any bone that when they get something or when they get somebody or whatever, they're just like, okay, well, this is where we're going now. And I did think that, especially with the main event this week, that going, especially since I did hear this on commentary recently as well, and like I think I said it in one of the videos, I can't remember which one now, that the Nemeth versus the Hardys was going to be the main event. So, like, again, that's, again, I don't want to just say Nemeth is, I don't know, it's tough to say, because now he is starting to feel like, yeah, he is being an established star now. Now you have had him there for a length of time. And yes, again, like, realistically, if you actually looked at his run, it's not all that clean and whatnot. We've talked about that, where his tag team run really was like, yeah, sure, okay, a thing that existed for a while with his brother and whatnot, and their feud with the Hardys and all that stuff and whatnot. And yeah, that happened, but you know, it's one of those things that, and again, the same thing for his singles career, that sort of, I don't want to say money in the bank, but that sort of money in the bank that they gave him, and they were sort of just like, left him on hold there for a while, and was like, do they remember that this guy's on their roster? Did they remember that this guy holds the call your shot? But they're not. They're. What's he doing? Huh? What? And to have like a relationship with Casey Navarro, and to start this story, with Casey Navarro, so that you could help Casey get over and whatnot. Yeah, cool. That's great. I really like that. But kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of it that I felt, I don't know, that it just sort of felt like you didn't really know what you were doing with Nick Nemeth, and you were just like, oh, we don't know what we're doing with you, whatever, come over here and wrestle with this kid for a little while, whatever, we've got other things to do. Oh, you've still got that fucking thing? Oh, yeah, we'll get back to you with that. Yeah, bye. You know, like, that was very much the feeling sometimes of things. Like, oh yeah, we gave you that things, didn't we? Yeah, we better figure out what we're doing with that. Oh yeah, Mike Satana's looking like he's gonna leave soon. Huh. I don't know. And again, I think that this is a booking problem, and a problem with the writers and the bookers. It's like, well, we know Nick Nemeth is a star. We know the Hardys are a star. And we haven't made any other stars, so, well, we're not going to bother making any other stars. We're just going to keep going back to the guys that are already stars because we haven't done anything to make any other stars. So we'll just keep it status quo and just keep doing the same thing that we're doing, not realizing that that's shooting yourself in the foot even more because, like, again, nothing is forever. You're thinking, oh yeah, they'll be like Moose and Eddie Edwards, guys that are just fixtures on the roster to an extent that just sort of hold the ship together and just everyone wants to come and see them no matter what, pretty much. And yes, they will be that, and that is fine to have. But being the champion and being the main, always being the main focal point, like saying that they have a story or whatever, yeah, sure, absolutely, they should have a story. But to be the main focal point of all the stories of that division, or any division, to me, that's the difference. To me, it's like, oh, well, very cool to have seen some of the stuff that you've done, but now it's like, well, what else do you got? Type thing. You ran out the whole, like, again, this is my complaint. You ran out the whole Righteous storyline before lockdown. When lockdown should have been, like, potentially one of the big blow-offs to the feud. You know what I mean? Or, again, like, I actually want to talk about this because, like, I haven't seen anyone really talk about it. But it seems like maybe they're downplaying, to some extent, the feud or the whatever between Daria and Santino to some degree. And they're sort of keeping them off TV a little bit more, which I think some people are really, really liking. I am actually kind of liking it as well, because sometimes it does just interrupt the flow of the show and things like that, especially for when the fans are just chanting for Santino for way too long and things like that. It's just like, guys, we need to just announce the match or announce the thing that's going to happen and move on into the next segment, guys. We cannot stand here for 10 minutes while you chant Santino, Santino. And I know the fans want to have fun and all that, and and it's cool to see when they're having fun, but it's like sometimes, like, Santino's all choked up there and is all carrying on, and it's like, Santino, bro, sometimes he knows, oh shit, I've only got a couple of seconds. I can't, be like, enjoying the moment sometimes. I've just got to say, no, look, the upcoming match is going to be this and this and whatever. And that's it. Because, again, we do not have the time. The time is wasted, man. We don't have the time, man. So, yeah, we've just got to say, hey, this is what the match is going to be. And then that's it. So, and sometimes they do that without, like, and I think, like, doing it backstage sometimes is good, or sometimes just saying, this has just been announced over commentary or whatever, or just putting the match graphic up or whatever. So that is, like, good as well, but still, I do think, like, the authority figure sometimes is a little bit overplayed in TNA. And sometimes I feel like the Carlos Silver thing, it's now become so, like, common in the company, but I feel like it's something that I don't know. I do feel like it is something that perhaps does not need to be there that badly. You know what I mean? I really don't think it's the best use of Carlos's time to be, even if that, he's only there for the championship matches. I think he should be watching the show, absolutely, but realistically, the guy isn't, I don't want to say on screen, but he shouldn't be, he should be seen in other ways. He should be on all these other different medias as much as possible. He should be, anytime like Mustafa Ali or the Hardys or somebody else is going for an interview or whatever, he should be along with them. He should be out there representing TNA. He should be on all the talk shows all the time. We're coming to Chicago this month, yada yada, this and that. Like they used to do press conferences back in the day, here and there, for each, for at least the big pay-per-views and that, or media scrums, or whatever the heck you want to call them. You should do that. Again, sometimes, just be like doing what Triple H does when he's like doing these media scrums or whatever else it is and things like that. It's at least out there being like, Giselle Salcedo, this person or that person. As much as possible, we should be open to all the media outlets, even if they are media outlets that do just like, we're just going to badmouth them because we can. But yeah, we should be open to saying, oh yeah, I'll come on if you want me to come on or whatever, and I'll come on for no fee or whatever else it is, because I'll take it as, we're getting the word out there about, some of the discussions that are internal. If you actually want to talk to me and not, just, you actually want to have a conversation, you don't want to just point fingers and say, hey, why does your show suck? Well, why does your mama suck? Suck a D's nuts, like, or whatever, like we can go around and around in circles about like, well, we have a show on Thursday nights that does over 250K viewers. Where's your show that does over 250K viewers on, the same network? Our YouTube numbers are in the 1 to 2 million range consistently. Where are your 1 to 2 million viewers? Literally, like that's the thing. Like some of these YouTubers, and I try to take myself very unseriously, because I know like sometimes only one person, or even 0 people listen to some of the shit that I'm spouting here. But I do try to make a concerted effort not just to criticize TNA and say, oh, they're bad, they suck, someone should just buy the company, yada yada, whatever, this and that, or whatnot. No. If they want the company to be good, they want the company to be successful, they want the company to, keep rolling in that money, and they want to be an alternative to WWE or an alternative to AEW, then they have to be thinking about, how do we make our own stars? Not how do we make stars for WWE to steal? And sometimes it happens that way of, okay, how do we make our own stars? Oh, one of our stars is going to WWE or AEW or wherever. Okay, well, shit, now we've got to go back to the drawing board. Okay, how do we make whoever else we've got into a star? Or how do we pick up somebody from the indies that hopefully we can make into a star. Oh shit, now they've gone to AEW, or now they've gone to WWE, or all right, cool. Well, now, like, that's the best thing about TNA sometimes, is that rotating roster in some ways, that it never gets stale because there's always somebody else coming along that could break through that glass ceiling, and you kind of never know who it's going to be in some ways. But right now, that problem is like that stagnating feeling of right now it feels like there is a very glass ceiling. And like, again, you've got old school attitude era stars in the Hardys. You've got, what is it, a PG star in Nick Nemeth. And I don't even think Nick Nemeth was that big of a star in the PG era, but, or whatever era you want to call it. But he was a star in that time period. But again, you've made him into kind of a reformed version of that star, because people can go, you've actually mostly, at least, like, even in that tag team run, they did beat the Hardys, and they did, face the Hardys, and they did have those main event level matches and whatnot with the Hardys. They did have that storyline with the Hardys, and whatnot. So to say that it wasn't totally successful isn't really true, but it's also is somewhat true, because again, like, that tag team, for the most part, apart from that one run, what have they done? Nothing. And has it really helped elevate them as a team? Not really. Did it help elevate anybody else? No. Did it help anyone else reinvent? Not really. No. So again, everybody is in the same place that they were in last year. So it's just like, well, so what? Like, if we're not elevating these newer guys, and yes, you're slowly trying to do that, but like, I don't know, sometimes it's like, how do we phase some of these guys out? You can't just get rid of them, but you can't also just be like, so gingerly stepping so slowly, so glacially getting towards these newer guys, that by the time that you get there, and actually Hotch, it's way, way late. Like, guys like Hotch, he's been there for a fairly long period of time, realistically. And realistically, he has not been a very big star in that company up until now. Like, we've seen glimmers and glimpses of, like, what it can really do. And I think, again, the upcoming pay-per-view lockdown will be another showcase of that. But, again, it's like, well, even now, even though before he was a very much a lower card act, or even not really even that, he was just more of a background character. At least now he is a more mid-card act, I guess. But even so, that's not really all that great, or all that amazing, or in some ways all that helpful. Again, you need more main event, or at least semi-main event guys. Like, again, you've had AJ Francis there for a couple of years now, and he's been in that same position this whole time, and it's felt like he's never going to be like one of the proper main eventers. He's just going to be one of the, like, semi-main eventers, like, that's just kind of there. And if you were to be like, okay, well, at least if we have him, we can utilize him to put over some other younger people or whatever. Right now, his biggest feud is with Elijah, who is what era star is he? I don't know. He's NXT era, because he was in NXT, wasn't he? He came along when Punk and... No, he came in after when Punk and that was in there, wasn't he? I think. I think. Maybe? I don't know. I don't remember, man. And what defines one era versus the next era? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, well, when did Roman Reigns first win his title or whatever? Or, or was it before that? Was it that period where Mark Henry held it, or was it that period where Daniel Bryan held it, and then finally Roman Reigns held it, or whatever, and things like that. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to think about, like, how things got to where they are, or whatever, sometimes as well. But yeah, it's always that struggle. And I think, like, I don't know who or what or why or whatever. And I guess, again, it's perhaps is part of that problem of saying, well, these guys are our big draws. I get that. But again, that's why you've got to make new draws. Because, again, if you just say, oh, well, we're just going to keep relying on the same old draws, those draws aren't going to be there one day. And then you're not going to have any new young draws. And then you're going to go, oh, shit, now what are we going to do? And then you're going to go, well, we're going to have to find some old draws that we can bring in. Oh, shit, what's that? Well, we can't get any. Because, like, all of them are our ex-stars that we just went, we can't be bothered doing anything with you because you're not superstars yet. You've got to give things to people before they're ready. That's what those mid-card sort of titles are for, to help get people and get the audience acclimated to saying, hey, these guys can be, just as big as these other guys in terms of characters and whatever and all that other stuff, and people who want to invest in them. And it's got to be real. Like, it's got to be as real as possible. The audience has to vote with their voices, with their feet, with their dollars and cents, and with their views. This is the thing about real wrestling. It can't be like WWE, where they just don't listen to the fans and they don't care and they're just going to do whatever they want to do, and they're going to push Rhea to 16 titles as well, or whatever else it is, and live to 16 titles as well before they get bored with it and then move on, or whatever else it is. Or, God forbid, Jade hurts somebody or something or whatnot along to her 16 titles or something. Things like that. Like, that's what I envision with them. It's just like completely all or nothing. Either you're our person and you're going to the moon and you're going to be like 2,000 days of champion or whatever else it is, or going to win the title 16 billion times or whatever else it's going to be. And yeah, you're in that, driver's seat for ages, or you're just like, yeah, whatever, bye. Like, it's two complete extremes of the scale and the spectrum. Like, sometimes it's just like, what the hell, and whatnot. So yeah, like, yeah, but that's what I mean. The fans ultimately have to decide, and I think that's the thing. It's just like, there is no clear Joe Hendry, or there's no clear, like, Mike Santana, the person that's, or Mike, Josh Alexander, or whatever, that's just like, this is the person that is going to be the next main eventer. You can just, feel it, and you can sense it, and everyone can see it, and it's all coming to a head, or whatever. You can feel it, you can see it, it's happening. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. Okay, cool. It's not that clear right now where we're going to go. So, but that's the thing. That's what makes it exciting. And that's where the audience does be like, we really like this person, we really like that person, we really like a lot of these people, and we want to kind of see them all succeed, but we know that, hey, they can't all succeed at the same time, and we know, hey, well, maybe some of them or whatever are going to go to WWE or AEW or whatever. But we still want to see them succeed here, you know. So I think the audience as well is like, it's again that cyclical nature of the beast sometimes, of the fans are just waiting for the company to actually get behind somebody enough for them to go, oh shit, okay, this is who they're going with. We'll get behind them as best we can to help them get to the next level, and we'll go with it, and hopefully they'll go with it. So maybe that's the answer. Sometimes the company's just got to go, okay, well, we've got to kind of pick for them, you know, like, and, or maybe the audience will tell us, we didn't really love that. No, that wasn't for us. It wasn't quite what we wanted, you know, or whatever. So, but yeah, like, that's the experimentation that you can do now. And that's the thing that you should be doing. And like, you are doing some of that, but it still does feel like, I don't know, whether the booking is just like, we don't know what we're doing because we're not getting enough feedback from the fans or whatever. But the fans aren't getting enough feedback from you. So it's like, and we, again, perhaps like that level of, well, we don't know if Leon's leaving, or we don't know if this person's leaving, or whatever, and all that stuff. So it is what it is. So yeah, but anyway, guys, yeah, that is the episode here for the most part. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. And yeah, I hope you guys will be able to join me again in another one.